Hey, everyone. Welcome to MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. This is our post-game wrap that we are so famous for, our instant analysis and wrapping up the day in college football. Welcome aboard. We appreciate your time, your comments, your questions, your suggestions, your input, your support right here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. If you have yet to subscribe, please do. Like and comment. We deliver the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. And let's put a bow on a big Saturday of college football, which, of course, there's a few more games still being played, but they do not factor into the college football playoff race or even into conference championship races. One game in the Pac-12 going on at halftime, Arizona trailing UCLA at 17-7, a game back in the Mountain West as well with Fresno State involved. But we'll talk about the games that matter, the games you want to talk about. And, of course, the big shocker on the day, not necessarily that they won, but, again, for a second consecutive year in the manner in which one of the best teams in the country went down to defeat on the road. We talked about it all week. How many times did I mention it's got the feel? It's got the feel of the Iowa game. I stated that a number of times, and it sure had the look and the scoreboard look of last year's Ohio State 55-24 loss to Iowa, and it was the big loss, of course, to Purdue. Boilers win at 49-20 over the Buckeyes tonight. Other big matchups, of course, included Clemson completely annihilating North Carolina State. That one was not in doubt from the opening gun. Michigan over Michigan State, and the Wolverines look awfully tough, especially on defense. They look elite. Alabama, as expected, rolled today over Tennessee in Knoxville. We had Oklahoma winning big over TCU, and we will get to all the action as well as your phone calls, 860-325-3687. So I also ask that you support the channel by using any of your Amazon shopping by going into the link below in the description section. And then going on Amazon, doing your regular shopping. You don't have to buy the products there. Buy whatever you typically would. Just use the links that we provide. Also, our newsletter comes out each and every Monday, and it will again this Monday, the voice of college football. Please subscribe by sending your email address to mine at MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. I've been looking forward to this all day, talking college football with you as we do each and every night. It seems like the best calls, especially the ones last week, we had our best calls after all the games were completed on Saturday night. During the week, of course, people call in. They've got their opinion. They've got their questions. They grill me on certain subjects. They challenge me. They applaud me, whatever they do. But there seems to be a little more fervency, a little bit more energy, a little more passion because of the immediacy of the games on Saturday. So in particular, if you remember the calls that we took last Saturday night, I just felt as though these were the best calls we've ever taken. And people, just with the games just having been played, have an immediate opinion on what happened. And because of it, what's going to happen and who may be a little bit better or a lot better than we thought, and who may not be quite as good as we thought, or maybe not even close to what we thought. So I invite you to call in at 860-325-3687. I will leave that number in the chat as we talk again. I would expect most of the commentary to be about Ohio State, Purdue, but we'll cover all of college football, any team, any topic, any game that you would like to talk about. Okay, so let's kick it off with my thoughts. All right, if we're going to run down the teams and the games in tonight's Ohio State-Purdue game, obviously Purdue was ready to play. There was much analysis of the defensive game plan of Purdue, putting pressure on Dwayne Haskins, locking up the receivers. We know, got a call coming in, and unfortunately I can't put the calls on hold, so I've got to take them and hold that thought. This is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
It's me, Chris Harris again.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. Had a heartbreaking loss tonight. I know that much.
Yeah. So did this one blindside you, or did you see this one coming? I think we certainly saw the signs over the last couple of weeks.
Remember a couple weeks ago when I called and asked you about this game, and I told you I thought it was going to be an upset?
I can't say I remember that, but you're definitely on record as saying that if you did. So
yeah, it didn't really shock me. What shocked me more was the score. I did not think we would get blown out. I thought it would be like a low-scoring loss.
Yeah, I picked Ohio State. Go ahead.
I do believe we are. We still control our own destiny. It don't look great because Michigan is really good this year. I don't see. That's going to come down to that game. Whoever wins that game will probably represent the Big Ten in the playoff.
Probably. Ohio State typically loses 1 or 2 games a year. So, again, I think it's similar to the Iowa game last year. It's not necessarily that they lost because it's difficult to play at Kinnick Stadium, but it's how they lost. And, again, tonight, they didn't so much get behind by a big margin until late in the game. So they didn't come out like a North Carolina State did. North Carolina State was never in the game. They got blasted. They were scored upon every possession coming out of the gate and were never in the game. Ohio State, it slowly slipped away. And then obviously the avalanche when they got behind and had to throw all over the place. Dwayne Haskins, did I hear that he threw 73 passes in this game? That's a losing formula. That's crazy.
You know, I made a post the other day on social media, and I was talking about that. I think Michigan has the #1 pass defense in the game, and I was just talking, and I was like, if we don't drastically improve on offense, I don't think we'll win that game because you cannot beat them throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah, so I think we've seen the warning signs. Ohio State's in the bottom 5 in the nation coming into this game and giving up gash plays on defense, plays of more than 30 yards. And certainly the effort tonight did not help that statistic as they got gashed, especially in the fourth quarter on the 2 running plays right up the gut. When they got the score to get them within 2 scores, both times they gave up a drive and the gash play, and they had a couple personal foul penalties that really hurt them on those drives, but they got gashed in the run game for long gainers, and that has been a warning sign. And the other warning sign to me has been the lack of a running game from the running back position, because you're not going to get it from the quarterback. And even though people are giddy, Ohio State fans have been all excited and enamored with Dwayne Haskins' arm, and rightfully so. He can sling it. JT Barrett's, I'm not going to compare them as leaders because I don't know. I would assume that JT Barrett's a better leader at this point in his career than Dwayne Haskins. That would be an assumption. It would be a logical one. But in terms of speed and elusiveness and power and knowing when to run and where to run and reading the blocks, JT Barrett was one of the best in the nation in doing that. And that element's completely taken out of the offense, and there is no threat from the quarterback position in terms of finding a gap and picking up a first down from the pocket or having designed quarterback runs like there was with Barrett. And we just have to live with that. Ohio State fans do. You know, you've picked up a great right arm, but you've lost the running game from the quarterback spot. And the running backs aren't picking it up because the offensive line is not run blocked well the last 3 or 4 games.
I completely agree with that. Another thing, I wish they would do this more often in games. Like if it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and you're going to go for it, I feel like they need to have Tate Martell packages like in the game plan for him to come in and have those plays to pick them up. I feel like he'd pick up a lot more than what Dwayne Haskins would.
It's not a bad thought. I was surprised inside the 10-yard line on the one sequence in which they went for it on 4th and goal. The previous play, they had a 3rd and they were probably at the 7-yard line, 3rd and goal, and they ran a quarterback draw. And I thought it was, number 1, predictable. Number 2, odd, because it was predictable because they love doing that, but they did it with JT Barrett, and Dwayne Haskins didn't have a prayer of getting anywhere close to the goal line. He got 3 or 4 yards.
Yeah. He's not a runner at all. And the defense has got to improve. I don't know what's wrong with the defense. And there's talent all the way across the board. They just take bad angles on plays and everything.
Kirk Herbstreit outlined it in one particular play, just in regards to, and this has been a problem for a couple of years, is that the linebacking core has not been, it's been mediocre at best. And the linebackers just aren't getting off blocks and aren't scraping to ball carriers and not seeing them in time and diagnosing the play in time to get to the runners. And it's putting a lot of pressure on the defensive front has been so dominant. It's covered up and masked the linebacking issues in the run game. Baker Mayfield most famously exposed the linebackers in coverage last year, but other teams have as well. And yeah, it's been an issue covering the Iowa tight ends on the road last year. Noah Fant in particular. I don't know what kind of game Jake Hawkins had, but Noah Fant. And the linebacking play has not been good the last couple of years.
And going forward, we ain't got Nick Bosa, so like that's another part of the game plan. They don't have to game plan that against us now. You know, we're down our best defensive player, and that's a big hit on defense.
Yeah, so over the last several weeks, most of college football has just assumed Ohio State's going to run the table and be in the playoff. But let's, if you want to take the argument from both sides, I think we're outlining all the issues. The issues are in the run game. The issues are that there is not a run threat from the quarterback spot. The issues are getting gashed on defense and poor linebacker play. What are the pluses? Well, you got a coach who's won 3 national championships. You have a very talented coaching staff that should know what to do and be able to correct issues. If they don't, then we have serious issues. But the talent across the roster is maybe the best in the nation or the 2nd or 3rd best in the nation. So they have a lot to work with. They have gotten bumped and bruised, but everybody does. And obviously they've lost their best defensive player. But it's going to make it a whole lot of fun. And also keep in mind, and I'm sure you realize this, that every team that's won the college football playoff national championship game has lost a game. There's been no undefeated winner win the college football playoff.
Yes, I have realized that.
And these teams have lost.
Control our own destiny. That's the greatest thing, is we still control our own destiny. We don't have to hope for other teams to lose or anything like that. All we got to do is win our games, and we'd be in.
Yeah. So, yeah, Ohio State's a flawed team. They cannot continue to play like this, or they'll be 9-3, let alone missing the college football playoff. On the other hand, people should hesitate writing off the team and as a complete demise of Ohio State football. That would be a bit. I see some comments in the chat, and I've seen comments elsewhere, and it's a bit ludicrous. But yeah, they may not do anything this year. They may go 10-2, 9-3, and miss the playoff. That would be very conceivable. They've had these issues all year. They haven't cleaned them up. On the other hand, I would not be surprised to see this team win the Big Ten championship and be in the playoff because they've done it before, and other teams and other conferences have done it before. One game. I would not expect a team that lost to the 2016 Pitt Panthers to win a national title, but that's what happened. I would not expect a team that lost to the 2014 Virginia Tech 7-6 Virginia Tech Hokies to win a national title, but that's what happened. Or that lost to an Ole Miss team that lost 4 games to win a national title, but that's what happened. So wouldn't write off Ohio State.
Yeah, and this is my last question. You think with the Nick Bosa absence, there's any kind of like arguments going on in the locker room or anything like that? Because I mean, he was the captain and just up and left the team.
So do I think that there are arguments in the locker room?
Or like the players like fighting among each other? I don't know. Just
I don't know about
any impact in the locker room having one of your captains in the program.
Well, I think it's a great question. I think it has to. We know what the on-field impact is. It's significant. So the off the field in the clubhouse impact, I would think, may not be significant, depending on how good the leadership is elsewhere. But you bring up a good point, because there is absolutely no way that 105 football players that are aged 18 or 19 to 21 can all agree on whether what he did was selling out on the team, or, hey, he's protecting his own interests. He's one of our guys. He did what's best for him. He wasn't going to come back maybe until a bowl game or college football playoff anyway. So I support him. I root for him. There's no way that 100 guys are going to agree on that. So it depends on their level of respect for each other and the team, and still pulling together despite having disagreements. It's a great point that can't be answered because we're not in there. But, you know, we're talking about big egos and high adrenaline and high testosterone with those opinions. So it's a great point that you make.
Yep. Well, that's all I have for you, Mark. I'll get off and let someone else call now.
I appreciate the call. We've got a few calls coming in. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
All right.
All right. I know that you've been on hold and couldn't get through, but we're off the line now. 860-325-3687. Okay, here we go. My ringer is down. So I don't know which one I'm. All right. I think we got this ironed out. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Sean.
Hey, Sean, what's going on?
Hey, big Buckeye fan, and I just want to say I went to the Iowa game last year, drove out there from Ohio, and you know, at least in that game we had a reason to lose. It was an emotional letdown after coming back from behind.
Good point.
But in this game, we have no reason to lose this game in the way that we did, in the sense we had no emotional letdown. We had 2 weeks to prepare. The teams that we played against weren't great teams. Indiana was okay. Minnesota was okay, but they both lost today. And interestingly, Penn State, you know, barely held on to beat Indiana. So I guess that kind of tells you how good Penn State is. I'm just really disappointed with Urban since basically 2015. I don't know what it is, but he just doesn't seem to. His teams play so sloppy, and he doesn't. You know, Nick Saban's his teams will play sloppy every once in a while, but for Urban Meyer, it seems like it's almost a week in and week out basis. I don't remember a game in the last 2 to 3 years where it's been like hardly any penalties, hardly any opportunities to go down in the red zone and not score. He always has. His teams are always having issues, and I mean, to be honest, his team is so loaded with talent. You know, for him to, it's just underachieving. I really don't understand. I don't know what he does all week, to be honest with you. And his defense, he's way too aggressive on defense. I don't understand when you get a team like Purdue in 3rd and 8, and you're going to go ahead and blitz them, or any team at that matter, when you have supposedly one of the better defensive lines in college football, and it just leaves the middles wide open. And if they run the ball and they do a draw play, it seems like we're so close to the line, we can't get to the guy. They bust these huge plays. I mean, but and it's not happening every once in a while. It's happening week in, week out, really since Oregon State this year, giving up 30 points and going through. I mean, are you noticing that? I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Well, combining Urban Meyer's philosophy on defense with Greg Schiano, and that's one of the reasons why he hired Schiano, is that they think alike in regards to they try to hire or recruit, I should say, and sign elite talent, of course, in all positions, but especially at the corner positions, because they want to be able to do what they want to do on defense. And to be able to do that, you have to trust your corners to lock down on the outside and cover all that space against very, very gifted athletes. But that's the pressure that they put on their corners so that they can do all those exotic blitzes and do everything that they do that opens up the field. And so they count on those guys. I think you also make a great point about the Iowa game in regards to Ohio State showing us warning signs, and also that they would have been unprepared as a typical letdown game coming off the big Penn State game last year. But there's also an element in there that you would think that this could have been a teaching moment in regards to preparation for the week, to say, remember that? Remember what happened last year?
I don't know where you live at, but in Ohio, everybody from, Cincinnati to Cleveland was saying that this is a trap game. This is a trap game. I mean, so it really wasn't a trap game because everybody thought it was a trap game.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Iowa last year was a real trap game. Everybody thought Ohio State was going to go all out and win every game the rest of the year. We were a great team. So that really was a trap game. I mean, when I went out there, I wasn't expecting to lose. But man, everybody this week, even you, have been saying this is a trap game. This seems like Iowa. That's why I actually kind of expected them to win tonight, because I mean, but they played basically like they played the last 3 weeks. Well, really the last 4 weeks. They got kind of lucky against Penn State. They can't run the football, and they have unbelievable talent on the offensive line, and they can't run the football. Their passing game has been good, but with Haskins not being able to run, creating stuff on the fly is just not happening. And the defense it's just been awful, really, since 2015. It just hasn't, or 2016. It just hasn't been good. Without McMillan in the middle, we just haven't been good.
Well, as you well know from watching a ton of college football, a big element of today's game that Ohio State doesn't have, but most teams have across the country, not everyone, but most teams have a Trace McSorley, Shea Patterson kind of quarterback, and there are other better examples of it. Well, maybe not necessarily better than McSorley, where guys can, the play call is going to break down, because if one guy misses an assignment, especially if that guy is along the offensive front, there can be a disruption, and it's not going to go as scripted. And if you've got Johnny Manziel or Baker Mayfield or Trace McSorley running the show, you've got a great counterpunch to avoid would-be tacklers and sackers and elude the pocket and put pressure on the defense. But Ohio State doesn't have that. They've got the guy who's going to be Drew Bledsoe in the pocket, and that's great. It looks pretty and it's beautiful when it works, but there's no counter to that. There's no improv.
I mean, personally, I actually think it's okay. And I would compare it to the years when McCarron ran the Alabama offense.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama was still able to run the football. Ohio State isn't able to run the football, and that's really concerning. And I just don't know what you do about that. Besides, honestly, I don't think we're a playoff team. We just have too many holes. It's not one thing. It's a lot of things, and when you have a lot of things, we'll probably, I mean, we'll probably end up losing to Michigan this year. It just seems the way. It just seems.
Sure looks like it.
We're just not. We're not. Yeah, it just. We're not getting our kinks out of the game, out of these games, and we create way too many penalties. We're very sloppy. So, and Urban Meyer's teams tend to be sloppy. If you remember Alabama when we beat them and Oregon, those were pretty sloppy games actually from Ohio State. We just had a really, really good talent, and we're able to out-talent them and outlast them. But, man.
Yeah, that team was pretty special. The team in 14 was pretty special, and the 15 team had no business not making the playoffs. We're talking about just rosters that were just drenched with NFL first-rounders, and we the 14 team and the 15 team then turned out the two NFL Rookies of the Year on both offense and defense with Zeke Elliott and Joey Bosa, of course. And then we see Darren Lee and Marcus Lattimore and all these guys, Michael Thomas making plays all over. I watched the NFL Red Zone all Sunday afternoon, and I see Buckeyes making plays all over the place. Yes, those teams were just drenched in talent. And, I can't really disagree with the first two calls in regards to the issues that we've seen in the last few weeks. And man, for them to mess around with Minnesota close to the beginning of the fourth quarter in that range, and to see Minnesota turn around and get ripped by Nebraska. Indiana, of course, as you mentioned, they've got a recent history of taking the likes of Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, into really good games, but they never win them. And they did the same thing with Penn State. But you would think just based on ability to throw the ball and playmakers on offense and playing at home against Michigan, they've got a shot, but they're not playing anywhere close to Michigan right now.
We have to mention too, TCU is not looking anywhere near what we thought they would look. What they looked at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
So. It's just a lot of licking our wounds here, I guess. So have a great night, Mark.
Thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, Buckeyes go down 49-20. Whoo, they got smoked. So it was a game that was, of course, let's see. I think the halftime score was 14-3. And we've got another call coming in. So, they were within range. Johnny Dixon, of course, made that touchdown catch to make it 35-20. That's when they really had a shot at it. Hey, it's Mark Rogers, voice of college football. Who's on the line? Hello.
It's Ricky TBB.
Ricky, is this the first time you've called?
This is the fourth time I've called.
All right. It's good to hear from you. Big Iowa Hawkeye fan. Shutout win today.
I just want to say congratulations to Purdue. I know the feeling. I rushed the field at Kinnick Stadium last year. It was an amazing feeling. We have the wave, as everyone knows, at Iowa. Hearing the story about the kid that's fighting cancer is probably going to die.
Yeah.
It absolutely. It made me tear up. It was just wonderful. It made my night. I went to the Iowa game today. We played great. We beat Maryland, but it did not hold a candle to hearing the story about the kid at Purdue. I mean, it was just great.
I think what those stories do more than anything else, my son made the comment to me. He said, when I see an individual like that and hear their story, it makes me want to root for Purdue.
Absolutely.
I did make the comment to him that there are, unfortunately, he's not alone. There are kids all over the place, ages, 2 to a zillion, unfortunately sick, unhealthy people watching college football, rooting for their favorite college football team in similar situations. So this one just was highlighted, and rightfully so. And I think it's just a good reminder for all of us to be grateful and thankful and feel blessed for the health that we have, and to reach out and do everything we can in regards to charity to help those individuals out. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I think they're going to bring them out we're going to bring them into the locker room after the game. with the playoffs and all that. That would have to just be, if I was in that situation, that would have to make me feel so good to be around all the playoffs after such a big win, historic win, maybe the greatest win in Purdue football history. I mean, that's just, I mean, it just gives you chills just thinking about it.
Yeah, so ironically, Ohio State, or I should mention, I'm sorry, Purdue's last win over a number 2 ranked team was in the same venue against the same Scarlet and Gray in 1984 with Jim Everett at quarterback, if anybody out there remembers him from the New Orleans Saints and the Los Angeles Rams. But, yeah, it was quite a win for the program. Jeff Brom's quite a coach. He's off to a great start.
In 2009, didn't they? At Ross State Stadium.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm mentioning that this is the last time they beat a number 2 ranked team in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, they beat them in 2009. That Ohio State team still went and won the Big Ten championship and the Rose Bowl over Oregon. Absolutely.
Ohio State finished, won the Rose Bowl that year again. So they can come back, and they're super talented, 5-stars everywhere. I mean, Iowa only has 1 5-star talent on their team, AJ Epinesa. I mean, if we had all the 5-stars Ohio State has, I mean, I couldn't imagine. It's crazy.
I like your defensive line. I saw Epinesa with a strip sack in that game. And, yeah, you guys did quite a job there on defense. I know Maryland's not to the best outfit. But... Okay.
Playing really good defensively right now. Didn't play too great offensively, but you would kind of expect that after, playing really good the last 2 weeks on the road in the Big Ten. But they're playing really good right now, and hope it continues in State College next week. Big time game.
So, of course, Ricky, you lose the tiebreaker to Wisconsin. You both have to play in Happy Valley. And so you need to do something here in regards to either running the table and hoping Wisconsin loses at Penn State, or if you both lose at Penn State, hoping Wisconsin trips up somewhere else. But the situation in Iowa very much in play in the Big Ten Western Division, as is Purdue with only 1 loss.
And Penn State looks very, very beatable right
now.
I mean, obviously we'll saw the game against Indiana, only beat them by, I mean, the stadium was just empty. Did you see that? That was insane.
It was insane. I was wondering if there was some kind of weather
to win the game, and there was only like 2,000 people in the stadium.
Indiana's an embarrassment when it comes to that. You got Penn State in town. I don't care if you've got Northern Illinois in town. You should come to the football game, but it is really got to be disheartening for those players. And I thought there was some kind of weather issue, that maybe there was some kind of bad storm coming in. I don't know what I was thinking in regards to there just having to be weather in play.
They all just left. Well, after they thought that Penn State was going to win, they all just left the stadium.
Well, I'm sure there were plenty of empty seats.
It wasn't that bad, like during the game, like when most of the game, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't packed, but it wasn't that bad, what I saw on TV.
All right, Ricky. I think we'll move along, just because I think people want to talk about the big games today, and but we appreciate your viewpoint on Iowa. Always see your name in the chat room, so I appreciate your comments.
Yeah. You do a great job. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ricky.
I'm gonna go to sleep right now. Thank you.
Right, have a great Sunday.
Okay.
All right, our guy Ricky. That's the first time he's called, but he's been making comments to Mark Rogers TV for a long time. Big Iowa Hawkeye fan. As you heard, he celebrated on the field against the Buckeyes last year at Kinnick Stadium, and went to the game against Maryland today with the Hawkeyes winning 23-0 over Maryland. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, this is Sense of Tumor.
Sense of Tumor. You're going to let me have it, aren't you? Or you're going to let somebody have it?
Well, I'm not going to let you have it, man.
Okay.
I drank, right after Ohio State lost, I drank a whole gallon of petrol. So I was ready to go, man.
I guess you are. Every time you've talked to me, you're ready to go anyway. You didn't need any help.
Yeah, but see, this is what I'm talking about, man. All those Ohio State fans, they were talking all that stuff, and I told them, man, they were sleepwalking all those games. And you brought up a good point with the last caller. You said somebody whipped up Minnesota, and then somebody put a whooping on Indiana, and it's like, hey, it's not adding up. You know, other teams are whooping teams you guys struggle with.
Yeah, so Indiana didn't necessarily get whipped up on. They were in the game till the gun against Penn State, but still they lost. And yeah, it's got to be disheartening regardless of this result. And we just saw the display of it against Purdue. So we don't need to start comparing scores, but we can. And when you see an Ohio State team that struggled as mightily as they did against Minnesota, only leading by 3 points in the fourth quarter, and then that Minnesota team go out and play an 0-6 Nebraska team and get waxed in the second half, then yeah, all these things are alarming. It's not like, okay, we've got this great team, we're playing great, we're beating everyone, but let's shore up. Our receivers are dropping too many passes. They're dropping like 4 or 5 passes a game. They should only drop maybe one. It's like one thing.
They were dropping crazy passes.
Well, no.
One dude,
Sense of humor. What I'm pointing out is that that's not the only, it's not like we can focus on one thing with Ohio State and say, man, if they just clean that up, they'll be great. They've got a lot of things to clean up.
True. But they're just too elite. I mean, the guy at number 9 dropped the one pass late in the fourth quarter. Like, you do realize you guys are trying to come back in a close game. Well, it wasn't that close, but you know, you're trying to make a photo finish, come back, and you're just dropping passes. Like, and did you see Urban Meyer on the sideline?
Yeah, so I don't know if you're the person, since you're an Alabama fan, to bring this up to, but my son was asking me to bring this up to Buckeye Nation because it drives him nuts that he thinks, okay, you've got 18 to 21-year-olds on your team, and they are looking to you as the model of poise and confidence. And Urban Meyer always looks stressed out. Now, of course, 9 out of every 10 games it works out, but always looks stressed out. He's always doing this and rubbing his forehead and like he's about to have you know what, because he's had it before. So that drives my son crazy because he thinks, hey, he should be exuding poise and confidence in leading his team in that manner. When they see him freaking out constantly, that's not got to give them a whole lot of confidence that they can get the job done. So we all know it from past examples at Florida and Ohio State. The memes are all over the internet on social media about Urban Meyer freaking out and all the stress issues that he's had, obviously, throughout his career. But my son wanted me to bring that up because he wanted to see if that bothers Ohio State fans. So I'm going to throw that out to everybody else.
You know what? I think it did. He did not look good on the sideline, dude. He didn't have that same energy he had, what was it, last year when they went up against Michigan. I mean, he had a lot of energy, you know, and I feel like the players fed off of that. You know, I'm not sure if Urban Meyer, man, this is the downfall of him in Ohio State. I don't want to go on a limb and say that, but
well, I think we also have to factor in what happened this year that hasn't happened to too many coaches and never happened to him going into the season, regardless of where you stand on the issue of how he handled the situation, both in the moment and going way back the last 2 or 3 years. And I'm talking about Zach Smith. That obviously would weigh heavily on anyone going through that ordeal. And again, I'm not defending his position. I'm just talking about the stress it would put on any individual. In addition to having to do your job, lead an elite program, you're expected to win a national title. Then on top of that, you know that there's a huge segment of the public that thinks you're just a bad dude now, and you had to go through that. That has to have added to the anxiety.
Yes, most definitely. I mean, who can recover? Like Nick Saban couldn't recover from what he did, or like what he didn't do. You know, just what he had to go through with the whole Zach Smith. I mean, that can really, you got all the eyes on you. So, what do you think? Notre Dame wins out, Clemson wins out, Bama wins out. then it comes down to if Michigan wins out or if Ohio State wins out or Pac-12's out, right?
Yes. The Pac-12's out. Everybody has 2 losses. Washington State doesn't, but boy, it's going to be difficult for them to play themselves into it. But for our argument's sake here, let's exclude the Pac-12 because most likely done.
Okay, Pac-12's out. Oklahoma, maybe. Well, hold on, because Texas has the tiebreaker.
Yes. Well, they have to play in a championship game anyway, so it doesn't matter who's the 1 seed and who's the 2 seed. Just one of them gets to wear their home uniforms in the Big 12 championship game, so it doesn't really matter which one.
I don't know if Texas could beat Oklahoma again. I mean, when you see Murray take off, that dude is scary fast. I'm talking scary fast. Like, safeties won't catch that dude. He's too fast. I mean, I don't want to play Oklahoma, man. I'm serious.
Okay. Let's understand that's one dude on the field, and he's a very important guy. He's the most important position. But let's remember, Texas won that game because their dudes on defense were a lot more physical than Oklahoma. Their dudes on defense, they've got about 3 guys that are interested in tackling and getting their nose in there, and the rest of them aren't. So don't be too concerned about that portion of it. So that's the reason Texas won that game head-to-head. They were much more physical in that game. And yes, Kyler Murray one-on-one or even one-on-two. But, man, when you can overpower the offensive line, and sure, he's going to gash you and he's going to get his plays. But, man, Texas won that game in the second half because they surrounded him. They harassed him. And when you got 4 or 5 fast dudes chasing him and trapping him in the backfield, then you got a chance. And there's a few teams in the country, and Texas showed us that they can do it. Now, they still had to score 48 points because he was still good enough to score 45 points, even though they put a lot of pressure on him. But that was the formula.
Well, Mark, what do we do? I mean, then I know Ellinger got hurt, but Texas goes on and struggles mightily against Baylor. I mean, does that say anything about Oklahoma to you, or no? Like, who's really good? Because you got some fake good people, and you got some really good teams. Fake good teams and really good teams. You know, how do we know who's really good out there?
So I think you make a good point with Texas's resume. Their resume in terms of who they've beaten is very impressive. They got the win against TCU, and I know TCU is only 3-4, but they've lost to really good teams. They beat USC. I know the USC is not that good. But anyway, Texas has a better resume than Oklahoma. But you make a very good point. We know better what Oklahoma is going to show up and do each and every week as compared to Texas. Texas struggled against Baylor. Baylor was throwing the ball in the end zone to win the game, down by 6 at the gun. They had legitimate throws in the end zone to try to win that game. Against Kansas State, Texas went up right out of the gate 19-0, and they were hanging on for a 19-14 win against Kansas State, and they're awful this year. You're right. We know Oklahoma's going to show up every week and score 50 or 55 points and do what they did to TCU today. They're going to beat them by 25 or 30 points. They're pretty consistent in doing that. You're right. You're right about that.
Yeah, I just feel like, there's a handful of teams that are ranked high that really are good, and a handful of teams that are ranked high that shouldn't be ranked high or as high as they are now. They're pretenders. Well,
Alabama's in a different league, so we'll just set them aside. In addition to them, or on the next level, in terms of what I'm seeing as consistent play, would be Michigan, Clemson.
Yeah, I agree.
Michigan, Clemson, Notre Dame.
Now, hold on.
LSU.
Now,
LSU.
Do you think, okay, LSU, hell yeah. Do you think that Clemson's really good, or... I mean, I'm disappointed in NC State. I had NC State. I anticipated calling you today or tonight. Ohio State losing. I knew Ohio State was going to lose, and I had Clemson losing.
You knew they were going to lose.
Yes.
Come on, sense of humor.
What do you think?
You knew they were going to lose. I just find that comment funny. You knew they were going to lose.
I knew Clemson and Ohio State were going to lose. Yeah.
Well, okay, keep going. You understand why I'm stopping and making you restate that, because you knew Clemson and Ohio State were going to lose. Well, you knowing that worked out 1 out of 2 times. You're hitting 500.
Yeah, I saw 2 upsets, and okay, I knew Ohio State was going to lose because of how they played against Minnesota, and they let Oregon State, which is the new Rutgers, Oregon State dropped 31 on them.
Yep.
So I knew they were going to lose. They're going to go into hostile territory, and they thought their name and their brand was going to get them a win. I don't think so. Clemson, see, but I didn't know a lot about NC State because they're supposed to play West Virginia, and, the weather didn't permit that. So, but I just had Clemson losing. So do you think that was more Clemson, or was that more NC State was a pretender?
Okay, so I'm sure you've heard this comment out of me at some point this season, because I've said it about 12 times, that is the game that I really wanted to see too, West Virginia, NC State, because West Virginia ran into Iowa State last week, and I picked Iowa State to beat them, but I was thinking, well, West Virginia I still think is a better team, but I just had a hunch that particular setting that Iowa State was going to get the job done. And I said, I really wish West Virginia had that out-of-conference game against NC State, but 10 times more, I wish on the NC State side that I would have had that sample to be able to see them play a good team and see what they did. But we had nothing to go by with NC State except for their track record. And, of course, all that defensive line talent went to the NFL from last year, but they still had their quarterback, and they lost their 2 best playmakers from last year. So I think that NC State is a typical NC State 8-4 team that's going to go to the fill-in-the-blank 3rd-tier bowl game. That's who they are. They're going to go 5-3 in the conference. They're going to go 8-4. That's who they are. So that's how I would judge the Clemson win. They beat a team that's one of the 25 to 35 best teams in the country. They didn't beat whatever they were ranked. It didn't matter. They hadn't proven it against anyone. And I got to say, I'm a bit giddy by this Arizona game right now, because I picked them, and I've got a dime or two on the Wildcats, and they're pulling off a big upset here as a 10-point underdog. But I digress. So I think it's a little bit of both. Don't you expect, even if NC State's not that good, we know that they're Purdue good. They're a mid-tier team. They're a mid-tier team in the ACC. They're Virginia Tech good. They're probably not as good as Texas A&M. They're Missouri good. They're a mid-tier team. They're Utah good. They're USC good. They're in that range. They're going to go 8-4, I would guess. Well, with losing the non-conference game that they didn't get to play, that's saving them a loss, but you know what I mean. So Clemson did what they should do against a team of that level. So no, Clemson didn't go out and play Penn State or Michigan or Oklahoma just because they were playing a team that was ranked high, that was undefeated, and curb stomp them. They didn't do that, but they did it to a team that they probably should only beat by 17 to 20 points, and they completely annihilated them. I was watching that game, and NC State didn't have a chance. Ohio State got destroyed tonight. Ohio State got destroyed tonight, but it was a game in the first half, and it was a game throughout the 3rd quarter, and they just kind of gradually lost control of it, and then the avalanche happened the last couple series. Clemson walked out on the field, and from the opening kickoff, just marched the ball down the field, touchdown, shut him down 3 and out, touchdown, shut him down 3 and out, and it was 21-0 before you could get the seat warm.
And that tackle was pathetic. That tackle, it was like late in the fourth where it was like 4 Ohio State guys around him, and he just still gets the touchdown. Like that's embarrassing. But how do you let? I mean, Clemson. I mean, that schedule, dude. I was looking at it.
Yep.
That is pathetic. They play no FSU. How do even if LSU loses to Bama? Okay, let me ask you honestly.
Yeah.
LSU is going to lose to Bama. Okay, I don't care what nobody says.
Yep.
They're going to lose. How do you let Clemson in over LSU? Like, Clemson hasn't played anybody in their conference. Their hardest game was Texas A&M out of an SEC team.
Absolutely.
Like,
well, it depends what you're trying to do with the college football playoff. You're trying to select the 4 best teams, and you're right. If I was going to select the 4 best teams right this second, and I'm not trying to think of who's in what conference, just who are the 4 best teams right now in college football. Alabama, Notre Dame, LSU, Michigan.
Hey, I'll go.
Yeah.
I like Michigan. Michigan looks strong. They look real strong.
But see, I got a different criteria. I just think of it differently, and I've got a different take on it. I'm taking conference champions, and I'm taking resumes. And you're right, LSU would have a better resume. I get it.
Clemson has a bad resume. They haven't played anybody, man, besides Texas A&M.
You're right.
They have not played anyone.
You're right. You're right.
So that's bull.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. They're going to be the ACC champion, and even the team that they play in the championship game. So think about this. Every other team that wins a conference championship is going to have to play, most likely, a really good team. Alabama's going to have to beat Georgia or Kentucky or Florida. Even Ohio State or Michigan, if they make it through, is going to have to beat Iowa or Wisconsin. You know, they're not great, but they're good teams. Oklahoma and Texas are going to have to play, most likely. On and on and on. Clemson might be playing, I don't know, Virginia in the ACC championship game. I don't know.
Wow.
Virginia's only got 1 loss, and they've got the tiebreaker on Miami. They beat Duke today. That was a big win for Virginia. Or they're going to play Virginia Tech, and we've seen them lose to Old Dominion. There is going to be no one for Clemson to face in the ACC championship game.
Yeah, that's just pathetic. I think that the committee should take that into consideration.
Wow, it's a great point. It's a great point. If their claim is to take the 4 best teams, I don't agree with that. I'm a big resume conference championship guy. I think you take the 4 best conference champions, but you make a great point. Clemson can't help that, but that's just the way it is. The division's horrible. The whole conference is bad this year. The conference is bad because Florida State's down and Miami's not anything close to what we thought they were going to be. And Virginia Tech and North Carolina State and Boston College, those teams they're okay, but they shouldn't be holding your league up. They should be the 7-5s and the 8-4s that they always are. But there's nobody else to hold that league up. Every other league's got like 4 or 5 teams to hold the league up, and Clemson's sitting there all by themselves.
Yeah, so Clemson should go ahead and play the Golden Girls for the conference championship. It will probably be a better game than playing Virginia or Miami or one of them trash teams.
So
okay, I'm gonna hop off the phone, and so someone can call. But you heard it here first. Clemson loses to FSU.
Okay.
Remember, you heard it here first.
Okay, and I'm going to back up your point with one example before I let you go, and that's that Florida State, as an undefeated ACC champion in 2014, won the ACC championship game by 2 points over a pretty decent Georgia Tech team, but they were nothing special. So we had an undefeated ACC team, ACC champion Florida State, go to the college football playoff, and they got waxed by 39 points by Oregon. So you got precedent to your point.
Yep, I have a good feeling about it. They're in for an upset. Ohio State got their upset. You know, Notre Dame's not out of the woods. Plus, Clemson has to go to Boston College. I mean, they're going to get an upset, man. Someone's going to get them. They got to go to Boston College and they got to go to FSU. One of those teams, you know, Willie Taggart's going to have his, FSU boxers on. They're going to win that game.
But if they go 11-1, and then 12-1 with winning the ACC championship game, the committee is still not going to take LSU at 10-2.
Hold on, though. Really? If you got some sensible people who have common sense, like me and you, and some of the people in this chat right now, they're still going to take a 10-2 LSU who played Georgia, Bama, Auburn when they had a pulse.
Sure, Mississippi State, Miami.
Mississippi State, Miami, when we all thought Miami was good, they were number 8. They had everybody fooled.
Florida,
you know,
Texas A&M.
Florida. I mean, dude, Texas A&M week 12 in Kyle Field. Is Clemson doing any? Clemson, who's the worst team? Wait a minute. Who's the worst team LSU beat? Louisiana Tech?
Yes.
Is anyone on Clemson's schedule as good as Louisiana Tech?
Well, come on. Yes.
Okay, well, maybe Louisiana Tech, but okay, so out of those 5 with Texas A&M, so there's 6 tough teams on LSU's schedule.
You're right. You could make an argument that LSU plays about 5 or 6 games that are as tough or tougher than any game on Clemson's schedule, which you pointed out is ironically against an SEC team is the toughest game on their schedule.
Yeah, true. But the committee needs to realize that if Clemson's playing cupcakes all year and they lose the one, and they will lose the one because they're just not a complete team to me, then there's no way they can get in over a 10-2. I mean, anyone with common sense can see that, point blank, period.
All right. You've got both supporters and detractors in the chat room.
Oh, yeah, Prince 6'1", this idiot. Yeah, that's a serious idiot right there, yeah. Hey, Prince, Clemson plays no one, okay? So if I walk into a retirement home right now and punch out a bunch of old ladies and I beat everyone in the retirement home who's over 90 years old and I sit on a chair with a crown on and say, I'm the king, am I really the king? Did I really do anything? Am I the prince? Am I anything? You're just beating up on a bunch of shitty teams. That's about it, bro. Yeah, Prince.
All right, Sense of Humor. Thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good weekend. Always a good take from Sense of Humor. All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We enjoy this. UCLA looks like they're wrapping up a win against Arizona. I believe they picked off a pass. I believe that's what that is. Yeah, underthrown by a lot. So UCLA is going to win a second game. So there was thoughts a few weeks ago that UCLA, in looking at the way they had played and looking at their schedule, that they might go 0-12. I certainly understood that perspective, but reminded people things change, things happen. They just have too much talent on the roster not to win a game. So it looks like they're going to pull out 2 games to my chagrin, because while I did take Arizona plus the 10 points, I also thought that they would pull out the head-to-head upset, which they almost did as a 10-point underdog. 860-325-3687. Get that annoying window on the screen. Let's get that off there. 860-325-3687. I've got no more water. That makes it difficult. I'm typing that into the chat. 860-325-3687. Otherwise, I'm going to go through some of the scores while I'll take a call here, of course. If you guys call, I'm talking. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking, and I'll look at box scores, and we'll talk about the games today.
I know.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who do we got on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Jared, 2KJ.
Hey, 2KJ. What's up?
I was hoping, Ohio State could pull through, although, obviously they didn't, but I still got a chance at the playoff because,
Sure.
I'm pretty sure they control their own destiny, if I'm not mistaken.
Seems like it.
Right.
Well, they do in the conference, sure.
Okay, yeah. Well, for the conference. I didn't get to watch the Mississippi State game, but how did Joe Burrow play versus Mississippi State? Because I know it was like 19-3 or whatever.
Yeah,
but,
so
I was just wondering.
I had that game on for the first half hour before the other games kicked off at 7:30. And so I watched the first couple series, and I may cut a video on, I don't want to pick on Nick Fitzgerald, but yeah, I have some issues with Nick Fitzgerald in regards to some of the acclaim that he receives as compiling all these SEC records. And I have stated on the record a number of times in the past that he is not a passing quarterback, and he's okay. Anyway, he was at the core of the issue for Mississippi State and turned the ball over a number of times early that gave LSU supreme field position. I'm talking about at the 15-yard line. So Joe Burrow had absolutely nothing to do with the first score of the game, the first touchdown on the board for LSU. I can't really tell you. I'm trying to think. I had the game on a monitor in front of me, but in terms of Burrow's play, nothing really stood out. I know that I can think of 2 times that I saw him throw a nice ball down the middle and they dropped it. Jefferson dropped one in particular that I remember. I'll look at his stats here. Let's see what Joe Burrow did. I could almost guess. Let me take a guess what he did tonight. I'm going to say Joe Burrow went 13 for 21 for $159 and a touchdown. I don't even know if he threw a touchdown, but we'll go with 13 for 21 for 159. Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, 16 for 28 for $129 with a pick. Now, again, I recall 2 really nice throws he made that were dropped, and understand that they scored a touchdown early, and Mississippi State showed absolutely no life on offense to even challenge them to make it a game. So they could go conservative tonight and be just fine.
All right. Well, yeah, I believe it was Devin White that called for targeting, and so I know that means when they play Alabama, because they also have a bye week, just like Bama this next coming week. Well, this week, that he will be out for the first half. Do you think that'll affect them? I know he's probably one of their
absolutely. I didn't know that.
Defense, so.
Yeah, so I'm seeing that right here.
I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
LSU dad's channel, and he said that. So.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now. I see a Death Valley crowd left angry after LSU's top linebacker Devin White was ejected for targeting in the 4th quarter, meaning he will not be eligible to play in the first half of the Tigers' upcoming showdown with unbeaten and top-ranked Alabama. Yeah, that's not good. Christian Fulton commented, as a defense, it's really tough knowing he's not going to be out there in the first half against Alabama. Okay, glad you brought that up. I didn't see that.
It's a big loss.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else you got for us?
I know, is it Greedy Williams and it was Delpit or Delpit?
Yes.
Like that,
yeah, the safety.
The secondary that definitely stuck out in the UGA game.
Absolutely. Delpit had a great game.
Yeah. Those 2 guys are, definitely NFL draft picks. Do you think they'll be able to neutralize the Bama receiving core? Because I know, they're
they're deep and talented at the cornerback position, and so is Bama, because I feel like both teams are capable of stopping each other's run, and so it'll, come down to the, because I think Tua will be able to, maybe the LSU have some blitzes that Bama won't see coming, and it'll definitely, they'll give Tua some different looks. So I think it'll just come down to the passing game, and if those corners can neutralize our Bama's receiving core, then Joe Burrow can have a good game.
So it's all logical thought on your part. I would agree that I've not seen anything defensively or offensively that would make me believe that, either team's going to be able to move the ball consistently on the ground. They still have to be committed to it, of course. What bothers a quarterback more than anything is pressure. So LSU is going to have to make that commitment and most likely mix it up in terms of pressure versus coverages to try to confuse Tua, because you don't want to be predictable, of course. So I'm guessing they're going to put some things out there next week or 2 weeks from now that they haven't put on tape in regards to blitzes. But as you know, no defensive backs, regardless of how good, can be expected to hang with elite wide receivers for extended periods of time consistently. So pressure is going to be of the utmost. And, Devin White, certainly that loss hurts the cause from a leadership standpoint, a toughness standpoint, and also from the standpoint of picking up a linebacker or back out of the backfield in the passing game as well.
Yeah. I know that Tua also hasn't played, defenses on this level, of our schedule so far. In UGA last year, I believe they had a pretty good defense. Was it top 10 rated, UGA?
Yes.
Last year when we played them? Okay.
They were.
Yeah, because I know that. Go ahead.
Yes, Georgia had a top 10 ranked defense. And I don't put a whole lot of weight in the rankings, just the total yardage rankings, but I am about 98% assured that they did. But I also would say that they had one of the 5 or 6 best defenses in the country, regardless of what the statistics said last year.
Yeah, because, Tua hasn't played anyone, so you have to, I guess, the best defense he's ever, that he's played so far in his career would definitely be them. And so, I don't know, I think, not I think, he did well versus them. Obviously, they didn't get to study some of his film, so you have to take it with a bit of a grain of salt. But, because Jalen, I had a big feeling going into that game that Jalen was going to get benched at some point, and Tua was, going to come in because, Jalen hadn't been, a great passer. He was only averaging 110 passing yards a game. And so it was really, we had a lot of great players on defense that helped him out. So going into this LSU game, obviously the corners are good, our wide receivers are good, and so I believe it should be a good game. I hope it is, because watching some of these blowouts, it gets pretty boring after halftime. And so I really want a good game, so I don't have to sift through the year and hope that Georgia makes it to the SEC championship game.
Yeah, I think you're kind in saying halftime.
True.
It was 28-0 before the end of the first quarter, and I was extremely, not that I should be impressed at this point because we know what Tua is capable of, but that first touchdown throw in which he threw that laser to the right corner of the end zone, where the defensive back was just draped around, I don't know if that was Judy or Ruggs, who that was. Judy. Did Ruggs even play this week?
Yeah, Ruggs played.
Okay.
It was a 48-yard touchdown. I think it was our last touchdown of the game.
But
came out. Not the last touchdown, but that's the last touchdown Tua had.
Yeah, so Tua just threw a laser for people that didn't see it, and the Tennessee corner was draped all over him. Not illegally, he had great coverage, and basically, I don't know how either one of his hands missed the ball because it was just lasered right between them for the touchdown, to the point where Gary Danielson didn't even think it was a touchdown in calling the game. But it's remarkable, the confidence and the chemistry that they have, and just the skill level in the passing game is remarkable.
Yeah, and what really excites me is that they're all sophomores. They all came from the recruiting class of, I think it was 2 years, 1 to 2 years ago, something like 1 to 2, yeah, something like that. And so they're all sophomores. It's like that Ohio State team that beat us, in 14.
Mm-hmm.
They had a ton of talent, And so I know Alabama has, been able to reload in the past, but I don't know if we'll ever be able to reload, this well, with Tua being, probably, if not the greatest, quarterback that Bama has had. Obviously he needs to still win another championship to be declared that, but so I really just hope that we can reload, because we also have Quentin Williams, our best defensive player, is also a sophomore, and yeah, so it's definitely going to be high stakes on Talia, to his little brother, if he wins the job, because he's committed to Alabama. He hasn't signed, but yeah, it's going to be high stakes on him in the next coming years if he wins the starting job to be as good as his brother, which is kind of unfortunate. It's like Michael Jordan's kids. They're held to the standard of Michael Jordan, and neither of them made it to the NBA. So it's said that they're trash, even though they made it to Division I basketball.
This matchup with LSU and Alabama, it reminds me of back in the pre-shot clock days of the NCAA tournament, which is going to predate many of you, but I'm sure because of these are such famous games, you might have come across these, like when Villanova as an 8 seed upset Georgetown with Patrick Ewing in the NCAA final in 1985, when Georgetown was considered to be unbeatable, and when Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler at Houston lost to NC State in that miracle team led by Jim Valvano in 1983. Those teams would try to reduce the game. They would take the air out of the ball. They try to hold the possessions. They try to reduce the number of possessions, because they knew that they had to play a near flawless game and execute extremely well and try. And obviously, the more you have to execute, the more likely it is you're going to make a mistake. So you try to limit the number of times you have to execute, meaning your number of possessions, and they were able to effectively do that, shoot extremely well, don't turn the ball over, and they were able to pull off monumental upsets against teams that are far more skilled and talented. And it seems like that's a similar match with LSU and Alabama. Now, LSU fans may get a little mad at me. I'm not saying that LSU is not ultra talented, but they do not have that kind of skill and elite play in the passing game to match Alabama. If this becomes a shootout, it's not going to be a shootout for long. It's going to be like, 42-17. So they want more of a manageable game, I believe LSU does.
Yeah, definitely. I was watching that Florida game when LSU lost, and I didn't watch all of it, but Florida was running it, down the throats of LSU for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Alabama's rushing game hasn't been, as effective as it has been in the past. Obviously we have Tua, so that definitely, we don't need to run it as much. But, I don't think we'll be able to run it effectively with, I know we're deep at that position, but we've kept it was only like one guy left, but on our O line, but 4 guys switched positions, and so I don't know if they have really gelled yet to the point where we can run it effectively with confidence like Florida did versus LSU for some of that game. So I'm definitely relying on that passing game, and that also brings up for me, I know Auburn beat Ole Miss today, and what was his name? Tamu? put up a decent stat line. Not decent. He had like 300 yards passing. But do you think he's a little? I mean, that Ole Miss offense may be a little overrated considering the opponents they're playing coming into the season, and before Alabama played them, because they haven't been very effective. And I know their defense is god awful.
Well, I think the interesting comparison to make when you talk about Jordan Ta'amu and his level of play is obviously he backed up Shea Patterson. And Shea Patterson is expected to be a top 15 to 20 NFL draft pick. And obviously he's doing good things right now at Michigan. They're starting to rely more on him, and he's played better as he has gained better control of the offense in recent weeks. The season that they both played, which would have been last season, of course, where they both played for Ole Miss, in which Patterson was hurt, Ta'amu actually had better stats against better teams than Shea Patterson did. So he was more effective against the back half of that SEC schedule in October and November than Shea Patterson was against non-conference opponents and a couple of the lighter teams in the SEC early in the season. So that's all I'm going to say there in regards to a comparison, and Shea Patterson being a fairly high standard of quarterback playing college football.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting the sense of that they may be. I mean, they're a great offense. They have 3 great receivers and a good quarterback. But I don't know. I'm just not getting that amazing feeling from them. With LSU beating them 45-16, Alabama beating them. We only give up like 7 points versus them, and so I don't know. I thought they would be a much better team. I know the defense is really bad, giving up like 44 points to Southern Illinois. So definitely. And one big thing that stuck out to me versus on the Bama game was we found a punter, which is a godsend at this point. Some transfer walk-on was hitting 40-yard punts, which is average, but as an Alabama fan, that's amazing considering Skylar DeLong was averaging like 20 yards a punt. So yeah, I was pretty happy about that.
One last note on Ole Miss quarterback play, and one thing to take into consideration, and even Hugh Freeze's best teams in 2014 and 15 that went to major bowl games and played really well, finished in the top 10 in the nation. They did not have dominant running games. They had nice running backs that were okay, but against the really good teams in the SEC, that was the one missing link on those Ole Miss teams. And they really haven't had that ever since. And this current team doesn't have it. So I think when looking at the time, Bo Wallace and then Chad Kelly was an upgrade, and now Jordan Ta'amu, it has to be taken into consideration the pressure and the workload that they take on without a running game that can support them, and really having to mount the entire offense through the pass. They only averaged 3.2 yards per carry today against Auburn.
Yeah, they're definitely although Missouri was running the ball, so that's maybe like a decency, so that's maybe not a good comparison, but they definitely, teams can just take the run away. And then all they were doing versus Bama was just taking deep shots, which in my opinion, I thought they would attack us in ways that, they would take, they would continue to run the ball even if it wasn't effective, make Alabama respect the run game, at least try, or, throw some short passes and then every now and then take a deep shot, not like, 1 out of every 4 plays. So definitely, I don't know. I feel like Freeze was doing a better job than the new coach that they have now with the way that he would attack Bama and, other teams.
Yeah, and that team had really good defenses too. So they could, know that they didn't have to just play perfect offensively and put up a zillion points because they played well on defense for the most part. All right, sir. Anything else?
That's about it. I hope your Buckeyes can beat Michigan and hopefully make it to the playoff. Because I don't know. I feel like Clemson, until they prove that they, can hang with some team because they haven't, looked very complete. And Notre Dame, I don't know, Stanford was overrated in my opinion. And so I don't know how their quarterback will stand versus tougher competition, but you do have to give their schedule, applause. Definitely something Alabama lacks. But yeah, good luck to your Buckeyes for the rest of the season, and that's it for me.
I appreciate that, 2KJ. Great call. And certainly we're still looking at the team when looking at Ohio State and also Clemson, that the two teams that are most capable and the talent on the roster versus the play on the field, there's a gap there. So that can be spoken for. But they're still the two teams that have the most capability, if maximized, to play with Alabama. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but they're the two teams that have the talent on the roster capable of. But certainly this Ohio State team that we saw tonight doesn't even belong playing Purdue on the road, let alone playing Alabama in a college football playoff. All right. Appreciate the call. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. You have a good one.
It's our guy 2KJ talking Alabama football. Of course, the Tide has little to worry about in regards to weaknesses on the field, but one recent one, of course, has been the punting and place kicking game for Alabama. We have a score right now. They took it off the air. UCLA 31, Arizona 27. Of course, the Wildcats need to score here. As I got myself some reading glasses, that was a tough call for me to make here. And somebody told me, you got to get some reading glasses. Okay, they do absolutely no good for the, of course, they're reading glasses. So they don't do me any good for distance. But anyway, see the screen well enough. We got UCLA with a 4-point lead. And, oh, there's still a lot of time left in this game. Okay, I thought that they were near the end of this UCLA Arizona game, but we still have like 10 minutes left. It's a Pac-12 game of two bad teams, so we know better than that. They're each going to score 3 more touchdowns. So my pick was Arizona plus 10, which is great for the spread. I should be good there, but I also took the Wildcats to pull off the upset as a 10-point underdog at the Rose Bowl. So hopefully that works out for me. That is going to prove key in terms of the ledger tonight. All right. I will let you guys know that tomorrow morning we are launching a live stream on SG1 Sports. SG1 Sports, we've got a live stream that's launching tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. That's to wrap up the entire college football weekend. All right. So that's going to be every week. So just to get you guys set for the people that are on the line here, about 65 or so, each and every Wednesday night right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, a live stream, 7 o'clock Eastern time, and I bring on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the nation to preview Week 8. And I also take your calls. And then on Friday over at SG1 Sports, every Friday at noon going forward, we did our first one 2 days ago or yesterday, noon Eastern time on SG1 Sports. On Friday, we do a live stream. And then all day Saturday, we're typically here. Today, I just did a Michigan State watch party, which turned into a lots of teams watch party. I should have called it a noon Eastern time early window watch party for college football. And we had a good time. I believe people enjoyed that. And then, of course, we're coming back to wrap up the day. And then each and every Sunday, back on SG1 Sports, as there's a number of reasons why we're doing that. So we hope you will join us there as well. All right, folks, 1:30 a.m. Is somebody calling Tua better than Aaron Rodgers? Am I really reading that? Am I reading that? Did I get that right? I hope I didn't see that. Okay. So, all right. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I would just ask you guys to like, comment, and subscribe. We believe we deliver discussion, debate, and analysis like nobody else. And that is not just me. That's the people we bring on as guest bloggers, broadcasters, and writers. And that's, of course, thanks to you as well, as we've got another call coming in. The line is 860-325-3687. And this happens all the time when it seems as though I'm wrapping up. Somebody gives me another call. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Oh, I'm sorry, man. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Who is this?
Antonio.
Antonio. What's going on?
Nothing much. Hopefully my last rant about Alabama versus LSU. I told you LSU need that loss to get them back on track, and that's exactly what happened.
We don't need this to be your last rant. We need to talk about this game for the next 2 weeks. We need you to just get us started to hype up this game.
Yeah. I mean, I've had faith in Joe Burrow. I still do. This game, I mean, it was raining, so I can kind of see why it was a sloppy game. I mean, that's why the score is what it is. But I think it was the last 7 minutes of the game, that's when Devin White got ejected. If you will take a look back at the so-called hit on the quarterback, he actually pushed with his hands first, and then his body made contact with the quarterback. So, to me, I think this is all a setup for Alabama to control the game in the first half against LSU, and then Devin White have to come back in and try to keep LSU inside the game after, the first half. That's what it seems like to me. I'm just saying. I don't know. It's kind of weird because I seen Alabama player do the same thing today in the game, and he didn't get ejected.
All right. So when it comes to conspiracy theories, I seem to be somewhere in the middle. My thought is basically, I don't try to look for conspiracy theories around every corner. I'm not one of those people that think everything's fixed. If I thought these games were fixed, I would stop watching.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think one team.
I'm not. On them right now. Well, I'm not saying, I'm not accusing you of that. I'm just making a statement to try to.
I know.
And then on the other hand, I don't want to be naive to think that there haven't been things fixed throughout our lives and throughout history in sports, in entertainment, and certainly in the government. I don't want to be naive to that because it has happened and it's been proven. So you believe that officials?
Yeah, it's kind of fishy to me.
Okay.
That Alabama has shown that they're a first half team all year long, and everybody's been talking about LSU playing against Alabama is probably going to be the only team that can possibly beat Alabama. So what happens right before the game they're about to play against Alabama? LSU, their defender gets kicked out of the game. Get kicked out in the first half, in which hence Alabama only played great in the first half. You see what I'm getting at here?
It's crystal clear. It was from the moment you open your mouth. I know what you're saying. I gotta find it hard to believe, and I hate to hear that. I would think that the message to the officials would have been, okay, here's your list of LSU players that we need out, and if you can reasonably in any possible way stretch a call to get one of them out of the game. Okay, you got Greedy Williams, you got Christian Fulton, you got Delpit, you got maybe you got.
But no, listen to this though.
Yep.
Devin White has even spoke about this before. He Nick Saban wanted to recruit Devin White, and Devin White turned him down. And this is exactly what Nick Saban said to Devin White. Well, I guess you're gonna have to get used to getting beat by us. So this is an agenda against Devin White. I'm just putting it out there right now. I'm just letting you know right now what's going on. I'm gonna just let you know. Seriously.
So how does that work?
They're not gonna be able to stop LSU defense because LSU has defenders all over the field. Now Tua's been throwing over all these weak cupcake teams all season long, but LSU has 4 to 5 to 6 defenders that can actually intercept the ball. So if he don't get open wide receivers, it's going to be a nightmare for him. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I hope you're right. Not that I want to see Alabama to lose. I'm not going to necessarily have a rooting stake in this game, but I want it to be a good game. I don't want to see another 42-17 Alabama win. So, I want to see a really good game.
I want to see a great game, too, but that just made me mad
for the night and for the next 2 weeks, because it just seems kind of, like I said, fishy to me that LSU, heart and soul of the team, gets kicked out right before the game's about to end. There's no way Mississippi State was going to beat LSU. Like, LSU defense was dominating them the whole game.
Sure.
And Delpit is like one of the best in college football, so he's going to have a problem with him. Rudy Williams is one of the best in college football. He's going to have a problem with him. Yeah, Phillips. You have all these defenders that nobody's talking about that he's going to have a problem with. Devin White might be one of the greatest ones on the team, but there's way more defenders on that team than just Devin White. So I'm just throwing that out there, too. Watch out for all those other backup players that LSU always have every year.
Okay, I can agree with all of that. I want to ask you about putting pressure on Tua. What are the prospects of you putting pressure on him?
See, that's another thing. And if you didn't notice, LSU has been changing up their defense lately. This game, they actually had, I think they said 5 men in the box, which is weird. I've never heard that before. The game before that, against Georgia, they had a weird defense in which they basically had Tua out in coverage and made him, make them run the ball instead of making them throw the ball. You see what I'm saying? Dave Aranda is smart on taking advantage of what the quarterbacks are good at and using it against them. So this is exactly what's going to happen with Tua. His leg is not 100%. I don't care what nobody says. I've sat there and watched these games. I've seen his demeanor on the sideline. He can sit there and lie all he wants to. I've played sports. I know when you're hurt, you're going to sit there and lie and say you're 100%. You know you're not, because you want to be out on the field. It's going to take one hit from an LSU defender, and he's going to get knocked out of the game. It's going to be up Jalen Hurts. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm foreshadowing right now.
You're on record. You know that.
Yeah, I'm on record.
Okay.
I'm telling you that right now. Because the last 2 games, he's got hit, and he's got taken out of the game. LSU has way better defenders than what he's been playing against. And when they hit you, you're going to feel it. I'm going to put that on the record right now. He's going to get knocked out of the game. And it's going to be up to Jalen Hurts to carry that team. And if he can't do it, they're going to lose.
Well, I don't want anyone to get knocked out of the game, but you better hope you knock him out.
No, I don't either.
Sure, I hear what you're saying.
He needs to sit on the sideline. He shouldn't have played last game. He should have got healthy, because you know you're going to beat Tennessee. Tennessee is not a team that you get afraid of, like you're scared that you're going to lose to. Like, you have too much offense to even put him out there like that. So for them to do that, that shows you Nick Saban's character. All he cares about is winning. You know this kid is probably not 100%. You should not put him out in that position. You put him out in that position if you need to against a great team, not a team that's not really going anywhere at all in Tennessee. That is stupid. You see what I'm getting at?
Well,
he's not about the players. He's about winning.
You said all that, but you also said that there was no way they were going to lose to Tennessee regardless of who was playing quarterback. Jalen Hurts only lost 2 games. He only lost 2 games in his career.
That's what I'm saying.
So he certainly wasn't going to lose to Tennessee. It would have just taken a little bit longer.
Exactly.
So
Jalen Hurts can beat you with his feet and with his arm, believe it or not. He can throw some ball that can beat you over the top. But, you, with him, like I said, with Nick Saban putting Tua in that position, and Tua's already showed his character and saying he's going to leave Alabama if he wouldn't have played basically in that championship game. That just shows you his character right there. Then he shows you that he is basically weak-hearted when it comes to playing against big-time teams that can actually put their hands on him, because he shows, if he gets touched, how easy it is for him to get injured. You see what I'm getting at? When he plays against a great team that can actually get to him, get pressure on him, that's when you're going to see who he really is. Joe Burrow and Tua are 2 different quarterbacks. Tua can tear you up all over the field, but Joe Burrow is cerebral. He reminds me of Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, all these other quarterbacks that can sit there and change plays on the line. You see what I'm getting at?
Sure.
That's why LSU's been winning, is because Joe Burrow has been changing the plays on the line without the offensive coordinator in his ear. Now, can Tua do that? We don't see. I haven't seen it yet.
You are getting the Alabama folks fired up here on the live chat.
Oh no, they can get all they want to because they keep saying LSU's weak. Well, stop recruiting Louisiana players if LSU's weak.
Antonio,
for all the Alabama fans out there.
What I'm not understanding about your argument is that you are telling me that Nick Saban cares about nothing but winning. Okay. You're also telling me that there is no way that they would lose to Tennessee. You or I could play quarterback and they would beat Tennessee, and he knows that. And you're telling me that Tua's hurt, but he still trotted him out there for 22 attempts, I think. Why would he do that? Unless he wants him to win the Heisman Trophy or something. I don't know why he would want to do that.
That too. That is all about the mystique of Alabama. It's all about the mystique of Alabama. Because if Alabama dynasty ever fall, because if they lose this year, he's going to lose a lot of recruits. And I mind you, LSU is getting closer and inching closer and closer on their heels in recruits. So if LSU ever reclaim their Louisiana recruits that Alabama gets, that is going to be the end of Alabama. I'll tell you that right now.
The end of Alabama.
Stay ahead. Huh?
The end of Alabama. They might as well shut the program down.
Yeah, it will be the end of them. I'm telling you that right now.
Okay.
I promise you.
Antonio, I would love to live in the world that you live in. I would love to be able to make up my own reality.
Every dynasty has ended.
I love your enthusiasm.
The Patriots going to end. Everybody's going to end, and it can't go on forever.
No question about that. People don't realize that in 2007 Alabama lost 6 games. So this will not last forever. I might have wrinkles all over my face and gray hair's coming at some point, but yeah, it's going to happen. But I love your confidence. I love your swag. I love your optimism that LSU is going to win this game and inflict punishment on Alabama and coming after them on the recruiting trail and going to be able to just surpass them in recruiting. Why don't we just start with win the game in 2 weeks at home? That will obviously be enormous. You will then be in the driver's seat to go to the SEC championship game.
Exactly. If they do lose, I still think they would give them a run for their money because I don't think any other team, maybe other than Georgia, could, maybe Florida, maybe. But those are about the only teams I think, like LSU, Florida, and Georgia, like the only 3 I think that can even attempt to beat Alabama. Everybody else, Clemson included,
sure,
ain't even on their level. Lawrence, he just got a 200, 300-yard passing game, and you took out your starting quarterback for him. What? I mean, I don't get it. These coaches are going crazy.
Okay, so you're telling me that the SEC has the 4 best teams in the country, is what you just told me.
They pretty much always do. I mean, and Alabama shows you that every year.
Always do.
Yes, sir. When they win the championship, if it's against Ohio, they can't score on them. Or if it's against Notre Dame, they can't score on them.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
Somebody from the SEC.
What happened last time Ohio State played Alabama in the playoffs? They couldn't score against them.
Oh, that's true.
Okay.
That's true. They did have that third-string quarterback.
Yeah.
That was a while back, though.
it was 4 years ago. It wasn't like we were talking about 1957.
Yeah.
But
when Notre Dame was all hyped up, they just demolished them.
Sure.
And against LSU that time when the Hunter Badgers were playing, that was just some bull crap because LSU beat them in the regular season, then won the SEC championship. And how did they get to the championship game? I don't know. That's beneath me, but whatever. But yeah, they're above everybody right now. But LSU got to show them, like, bring them back down to earth like they had to come back down to earth when Florida beat them.
All right, Antonio, it's an interesting take you have, and if I've got it straight, there was a conspiracy to knock out Devin White or one of LSU's top players out of the game against Bama, at least the first half, and LSU is going to knock out Tua, and they're going to beat Alabama.
Yeah,
okay,
that's what I'm going with.
All right, and the SEC has the 4 best teams in the country.
I think so.
And they are
maybe you might can throw in Michigan, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, but they're bipolar like LSU sometimes. So.
Okay. All right, Antonio, I appreciate the call. You have a great weekend.
All right, you too. Thank you for taking my call.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline.
All right, here we go with another caller. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Mark, man, it's Reasonable Grump. How you doing?
Hey, it's good to hear you. What's going on?
Oh, no, I just call in, apologize for you having to listen to that nonsense with that last caller.
Well, you know, it's a bit of a different deal in terms of what I do. I try to be gracious and let you guys just talk. And sometimes I will push along the conversation and move on. But I try to let you guys just speak your mind. I speak my mind all week, so I might as well let you guys talk, regardless of how amusing it is.
That was an interesting indictment of Nick Saban's character. So now he's a bad guy for letting his starting quarterback play, huh? He's a bad guy for putting Tua out there to play football when that's literally what he's at Alabama to do.
I find it interesting. I find it interesting in that he's not just a bad guy, but he's not real bright if he's taking his quarterback and putting him in harm's way when he's got his toughest game coming up in 2 weeks. I would think that you would want to sit him down and get him right. That's what you would want to do if he wasn't ready to go, regardless of your care for any individuals, for your own legacy, for your own protection of the team and the championships and the winning, that you would sit him down and play Jalen against Tennessee.
Well, I think a lot of people kind of had that mindset going into it. I guess what he was saying was true, though, that Tua was looking a lot better, way better than he was last week in practice. And he was probably telling him that, hey, coach, I don't have any problems. I'm not feeling any pain. I'm good to go out. Nothing bad's going to happen. And I mean, if you're the head coach and this guy's done everything he's done for your team this entire year, not to mention what he did in the championship game last year, you kind of have to trust him in this. If he thinks he's good and the medical staff is consistently clearing him to go, then what's the harm in letting him play for a half of football or a half of a game? I can't even. It astounds me that letting the guy play is all of a sudden now an indictment on Nick Saban's character. Because before, it was the fact that he was handling this quarterback situation, quote unquote, for his own benefit with Jalen Hurts, with quote unquote manipulating Hurts into staying and all. That was how he was a bad guy. Well, somehow we're the only ones without a quarterback situation now. Clemson lost their backup. Georgia's fumbling around. They're playing musical quarterbacks up there. They stick one in to hand it off, and then they take him back out, put in the guy that can't throw the ball. We're the only ones with the best quarterback in the nation leading the country and a really solid backup who's led us to 2 playoffs. So that's amusing to me that was the original quote-unquote bad mark on Saban's character. And now he's taking heat from some Joe Blow calling in here saying that hey, this shows what Nick Saban's character is, that he made his starting quarterback play against Tennessee. It's just astounding to me, man. I just got to say that.
Yeah, it's a lot of conjecture to make that there are conspiracies against certain teams and for certain teams, and manipulation of referees to make calls to kick certain players out, number one, and number two, to interpret a decision and take a lot of liberties in interpreting that decision to benefit just the head coach in the program and not take players or any kind of logic into consideration. So, yeah, I agree.
And where did this notion of Alabama would be nothing without Tua come from? We haven't had Tua up until just this year, and we've done pretty damn good. I would say.
I don't know. Who's saying that?
Your comment section. Pretty sure the last caller did.
Well, I have pointed out that it's just transformed the offense, but certainly you were getting along fine, winning national championships, and when you weren't coming, within seconds of winning national championships. So despite the issues that Jalen Hurts had in the passing game and other limitations that quarterbacks have had, certainly Greg McElroy and A.J. McCarron were not the greatest quarterbacks on the field, but they've been good enough to earn millions of dollars in the NFL. So they were good to that extent. But, they weren't asked to do a lot. I'm sure that Greg McElroy, based on what they showed us in the NFL later, they could have been leading offenses in the Big 12, throwing for 500 yards a game, too.
I might disagree with you on A.J. McCarron. I think he actually was a pretty phenomenal quarterback. His numbers were actually very comparable to Peyton Manning's at the end of his senior year. You just didn't see a lot of it because Alabama was a running team back then. But he had over 230 something passes without an interception at one point.
Well, I'm not saying he wasn't efficient, but he wasn't among the league or the nation's leaders in passing. He wasn't a guy that he wasn't allowed. He wasn't given that type of responsibility and didn't need to because of the running game and the defense to put up glossy numbers.
Right, but I think that's more of the program that he was stuck in.
Oh, absolutely, and that was part of my point. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I said those guys could have went to the Big 12 and put up 500 yards a game.
Yeah, that's true. Well, who was the first quarterback we've had that kind of made Saban change his offense to fit him instead of the other way around? So
yeah,
that's kind of a remarkable achievement on its own. This is exactly the kind of offense that everyone pretty much knows. He's not going to come out right and say it, but everyone pretty much knows this is not the kind of offense Saban wants to have. Risky, gunslinging kind of offense. Scoring quickly, not giving the defense a lot of time to sit down. Saban likes to grind, with a lot of runs. But when you got a quarterback this electric and this accurate, what can you do? What can you really say? Can you really tell him to hand the ball off two times a series?
No, it's difficult to criticize with any of the moves currently being made or that have been made at Alabama. So, Nick Saban is by far and away the best coach in the game and has been for quite some time and probably is in the history of the game. So far be it for me to question his decision-making and whether he has chosen with different quarterbacks to say, hey, you got to fit my system, and to make the exception this time because he's probably changed slightly. He's a little more mellow, but generally because he's just identified a very gifted player and he's chosen to make this move because it's the right move to make.
Yeah, that's completely it. And hey, if Saban's mindset is quote unquote everything about winning, do whatever it takes to win, then I'm glad he's our coach. that's that's the mindset I want in every single one of our players, and that's what a mindset and a head coach should be. That doesn't mean you're a bad person and you don't care about your players' health just because you want to win championships. You can be both. They're not exclusive of one another. I don't think anyone who actually pays attention would say that Nick Saban doesn't care about his players. I mean, I know not everyone who talks about him is an Alabama fan and actually, watches what he does, what he says, what the players say about him, the way he runs practice, and the way they treat him, and what they said, what he said to them when he came to their house and recruited them. So no one really pays attention to that, but you can have the mindset of wanting to win every game you play and wanting to do whatever it takes to do it, and still be a decent guy. So just want everyone out there to think about that.
Absolutely. When we talk,
the two are not exclusive.
They're not exclusive, and the one guy that takes the brunt of the targets when it comes to being a good guy and being unsuccessful. And when I say unsuccessful, I mean when we're talking elite coaches, is Mark Richt. But you can still, that doesn't mean you're not tough. Being a bad guy doesn't mean, or not being a bad guy doesn't mean you still can't be tough. You have to be tough in that sport, in that game, handling 18 to 21-year-olds, doing all the things that you knew. You're still tough. You still hold people accountable. You're still a disciplinarian, but you can still be a good guy with integrity and values. Those certainly go hand in hand. And certainly Alabama's had its share, just like everybody else in the college football landscape, of issues with guns and marijuana and little flare-ups with players. But generally, the program has been void of scandal as well since he's been there.
Yeah, and so we're one of the, of course, numerous programs out there that have been, as you say, void of that. But there's been other programs, namely one right next door to us, that hasn't been. And so I think that's something that a lot of people kind of either forget, or they don't want to talk about, or just pretend it isn't happening. Is that, when either a team or a person appears, I'm not saying they are, they appear unstoppable, right? When someone appears unstoppable, everyone immediately wants to go to, okay, how are they cheating? Okay, what are they doing? What kind of secret advantages are they giving themselves that no one else has? Because no one wants to believe it, that a team or a player or competitor is just that much better than you. It's a typical human reaction to want to believe that they're cheating somehow. And Alabama gets a lot of that simply because they're just better than everyone else. Well, they haven't gotten caught for cheating yet. And by the way, wasn't it in the preseason when some anonymous coach, who not only said Nick Saban was like the most overrated coach in college football, he also made a drive-by shot about how he cheats in his wins or his recruiting or something. Yet offered no evidence of that, no hints, no clues of where he come up with some crap like that. When programs cheat, they tend to get caught. USC cheated, we caught them. Ole Miss was cheating, we caught them. And those schools aren't even in the spotlight, and they still got, well, USC was at the time, but Ole Miss certainly was not. So, it's stuff that Alabama fans have to deal with on a daily basis. but I'm sure you know that. I'm actually almost kind of looking forward to that day when it all finally does come to an end. Maybe we'll be out of the spotlight and out of all the hate for a little while.
Yeah, we can see that in all walks of life. I watch YouTube videos and look online concerning other topics, and whether they be entertainment, politics, whatever the situation is. And if somebody's overly popular or overly successful, they're a target. And that's Alabama right now. Alabama has been the program in college football since 2009 to varying degrees. Right now, probably to its most dominant degree, if they complete what we all expect to be a national championship this year and make it just this incredible run, especially since 15, in which they would be seconds away from just completely sweeping 4 consecutive and winning 3 of 4. We're not there yet, but they certainly look the part, and that's difficult. So you gotta figure, reasonable Gump, that if you're a fan of, pick almost any school in the country that plays Power 5 football, if you're a fan of UCLA or Kansas State or North Carolina State, well, you don't expect your program to compete with Alabama. So you probably take less offense. Yeah, you're annoyed. Yeah, you're sick of it, but you take less offense. But if you're a fan of Ohio State, if you're a fan of Michigan, you're a fan of Clemson, Florida State, USC, then based on history, based on how you grew up, based on your bias, you believe that you should be that team. And when you see somebody else is that team, and there's a level of frustration because you can't, and your program, your coach is not attaining that level and knocking them off, and it just continues season after season after season after season. So it's just frustration.
Yeah,
it's just jealousy and frustration.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm with you all the way. Of course, the saying that I like this, say that I think applies to this is losers hate winners. I'm not saying all these programs are losers, but when people complain about Alabama, that's basically the vibe I get. I have a natural urge in me kind of to root against Ohio State and Oklahoma and Notre Dame, those kind of teams. This year, I've been kind of fighting that urge with Ohio State and Notre Dame because I actually want them both to make the playoffs. That may have been hindered somewhat tonight.
Absolutely,
But,
it was hindered. I don't know that it was just hindered. It was also just gives us indication that they're not going to be able to win out. It's not so much just tonight. If they pick up the pieces and march on, the one difference between this year, because people are comparing, obviously, for apparent reasons, the loss tonight to the loss to Iowa last year, but the loss to Iowa was included with a loss to Oklahoma. If they stay clean the rest of the year, there's just going to be the one loss, and they should be fine to get to the playoff. But it's more than that. It's indication of problems and issues that are not being addressed and not being fixed.
Yeah, and you went on. You talked a lot about that with your first couple of callers. I won't get into that again. I will make 2 points regarding that, though. If Ohio State cleans it up and wins out, and I made this point in the comments at the very beginning, right now, Oklahoma's ahead of Ohio State. Because if Oklahoma wins out, they have a much better loss than Ohio State does. They lost a very close game to Texas, who's a good team right now. And Ohio State got trounced by an unranked Purdue.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I would say that because right now, and by the way, this is assuming that Alabama and Clemson, Notre Dame,
sure,
finish their seasons like they look like they will.
Yeah, there's one spot.
Competing for a 4th spot,
yes.
I got to say right now, Oklahoma looks better if they win out. This is all just, for instance, of this what ifs.
Okay, this is how
right now. I think I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, reasonable Gump. This is how I approach it. So the losses, of course, count. They're the blemish on the schedule. We're not talking about teams that went 1-12 and looking at all the we're talking about teams that go 12-1. So the loss stands out as a sore thumb. So how bad was the loss? Who was it to, and in what manner? So that makes total sense. You compare the losses. But what I don't understand is we will need to compare the wins as well. So that's only fair to say, okay, who did Ohio State beat? Who did Oklahoma beat? Or if it's Michigan, who did Michigan beat versus Oklahoma? So that has to be measured out as well, not just who on one given day when we're comparing 5 and 6 wins and ultimately 12 wins versus 12 wins. Shouldn't we do that as much as we compare just one game?
You should, and you're right that I was kind of taking that for granted, though I think a lot of people will take the wins for granted if they're the same number. Like if they would both be 12-1. So the first thing people are going to look to is the loss. That's just it. But before we get to the wins, everyone's going to look at the loss. And I think a lot of people are just going to stop right there when they see just how bad the loss to an unranked Purdue was. I'm not saying we won't look at the wins, but I think a lot of people, myself included, last year, of course, Ohio State also had the trouncing loss to Oklahoma last year, like you said, so really the situations are completely different. But I look at a team, you're telling me this team, not you, in general, people are going to say this team, Ohio State, deserves a chance at the playoffs and to possibly be a national champion. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, do we really want a national champion who lost by 30 points to an unranked team? It's like, is this what college football needs?
Do we care?
I'm not sure any of that should even be taken into. Yeah, so I say, do we care? Personally, I do. But anyway, that's why I'm saying a lot of people might not even look past the loss. If you do look past the loss, and let's go to the wins, Oklahoma is still looking would be pretty good there because they would most likely have to beat West Virginia. Of course, no, they would have to beat West Virginia.
Yeah, we don't know how good they are.
Texas again.
Sure.
But they'd have to beat Texas again probably in the championship. Because, yeah, there's no divisions. Ohio State, on the other hand, would have the big win against Michigan at the end of the year, and then their championship with Wisconsin, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess if you want to count the Penn State win as well, and I'm kind of wavering on Penn State and Michigan State. I'm not sure how good they're going to be at the end of the year.
All right. Well, off the top of my head, if Oklahoma and Ohio State prevail on through the schedule, and the teams that they play do what we reasonably can expect them to do, then Ohio State would have the win over a Michigan team that's going to finish 10-2 with losses to Notre Dame and Ohio State. And they're going to beat Penn State and Michigan State, who are probably going to be 8-4, 9-3 type teams in the top 15 to 20 in the country, something in that range. And they're going to have a win against either Iowa or Wisconsin, whoever makes the championship game. And they're probably going to be 9-3, 10-2 type teams that are ranked, 15 to 20 in the nation. And that's going to be the slate, because we can toss out the TCU game. They both beat TCU, and Ohio State beat them by 12, and Oklahoma beat them by like 25. Anyway, yeah. So we can toss out the one game for the most part. And if you want to split hairs, we could say Oklahoma beat them a little bit more decisively, I guess. Although it was 31-24 in the second half. Anyway, so 2 wins over, let's say, Texas, and Texas will be 11-1. Well, I guess they'll be 11-2 or 10-3, something like that. So they'll be in the Michigan range. So Texas and Michigan will be like wins, and West Virginia, I don't know how good they are right now. They haven't played really anyone. They lost to Iowa State.
I would still say West Virginia is easily, you can say, would be an 8-win team. So in the Michigan State, Penn State range.
Yeah, I'll give West Virginia, Michigan State, Penn State grade. Okay. And then we got Oklahoma State. Is that who we've got left?
For Oklahoma, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think Ohio State's resume is a little deeper, but not significantly.
And at that point, I think it probably will just come down to, because they'll both go into championship week. It's going to depend on how the committee has them current ranked at that time. Because let's say one's 4 and the other's 5.
Yep.
Well, if they both win their games, the 5 is not going to jump the 4.
Yeah, if they're both playing, if they're both playing 10-2 Iowa/Texas teams, and they both win games in which didn't come down to a deflected pass in the last second, but it was a reasonably competitive game, and they won by 7 or 10 points. And they're very like, it's not like 2014 and Ohio State went out and waxed Wisconsin 59-0. And so somebody made a statement. yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how those two teams. It's probably going to come down to your first point, and that's that Ohio State looked deplorable versus Oklahoma just losing a game. Just losing a game against a team that they rematched in a championship game and avenged the loss. And we don't even need to focus on Oklahoma. It's a split situation either way. It's either Oklahoma, Texas, or it's Ohio State, Michigan. Michigan is actually the team that Big Ten fans should be rooting for, because they could say, we lost way back in week 1, September 1st, and we lost on the road at Notre Dame, and they're going to the playoff.
Yeah, I know. I'm willing to meet that statement halfway. At Notre Dame, a good team. I'll give you that. To me, losses early in the season don't mean any less later in the season. I know I'm the 1% who feels like that.
No. I'm the 1% too, because I think it's all a resume. It's your resume.
Exactly.
But still, that's to Notre Dame, and it's only a touchdown, and it's on the road versus Purdue, 29 points.
I am willing to say that much, yes.
Yeah, it's a much better loss.
So, but again, that all comes down to Michigan having to go into Columbus and get the job done, something that they haven't done. And how many years did you say it was? 15?
So if you take out the Luke Fickell year, and that was at the Big House, that was in Ann Arbor. The last time Ohio State lost at home to Michigan was in 2000. They lost in 2003, but that was in Michigan. They lost in 2000. 2000. Just barely into the century. Yes, in Columbus. 2000. I remember it well. Chad Henne at quarterback for Michigan. He threw like 2 incomplete passes in the game. Yep, that was the last one.
Well, let me close out by a little preview with the LSU game. Similar to what you just said about that kind of stretch. LSU has no home field or driver's seat advantage in Baton Rouge when it comes to Alabama, and Alabama has the home field in Baton Rouge. All right, between 1971 and 2000, we didn't lose a game in Baton Rouge. That's 30 years.
Oh, I remember. Yep, I remember that streak. Yep.
Okay, we've won more times in Baton Rouge than we have in Tuscaloosa. Now, part of that is because we played most of our home games in Legion Field in Birmingham up until the 2000s. But still, there is no home field advantage for LSU. Okay, Tua and Joe Burrow do not need to be even in the same sentence. I thought that was very strange when I was hearing that. Joe Burrow completes 50% of his passes. I'm not saying he's bad. He makes throws when he needs to. He made the throws when he needed to beat Auburn. He wasn't on fire, but he was sitting on a hot. He was warm against Georgia. So he's not that super accurate quarterback that you would think is going to be the one to carve up Alabama's defense. Now, I'll say this: Alabama's defense this year does not look like the same defense we had under Saban for the last decade. We definitely look more vulnerable when we're giving up 21 points to Tennessee, although the defense only gave up 14 of those. So I guess I'm being overly critical there. But still, 31 to Arkansas isn't that good. Good thing both teams have a bye week. Good chance to rest up all the players, get some back from injuries perhaps, and just kind of plug up some holes. But I mean, I dare anyone to find me a significant factor other than kicking that LSU has an advantage in. Running, the overall defense, scoring, passing offense, coaching, O-line. I mean, so I just don't see it. I'm sorry. And this is me. I've been high on LSU since the preseason. I picked them to beat Miami. I picked them to beat. Well, I didn't pick them to beat Auburn, but I was feeling it. I picked them to beat Georgia. They're not beating Alabama. I mean, they're just not. They don't have the offense. They haven't had it all year, and they still don't, to be able to keep up with what Alabama is going to do to them. All right? Not saying they won't score points. They will. I don't think it'll be that many. They're not the kind of high-flying offense that gives Nick Saban fits. They're a pro-style, come-straight-at-you kind of offense. That's the offense Alabama loves to face. And that's pretty much been the story of Alabama and LSU for the past decade. We never score a bunch of points on each other. Hell, we had a 9-6 game. It was one of the most infamous games between the two one time. Last year, I think we won 24-10. The year before that, it was like 10-0. Neither school has been scoring a lot of points. The difference, LSU's offense is no different than it has been. They have a slightly better quarterback. Alabama has a 10,000 times better quarterback and wide receiver core than they've ever had. That's going to be that's going to be the difference maker. By the way, even without Tua, we've still beaten them like a drum with Jalen Hurts 2 years in a row. So, not saying that it would be that easy this year or better, but to say that Alabama doesn't have a chance without Tua and that all LSU needs to do is get him injured because he's quote unquote fragile. I mean, he's like 6'1" and like over 200 pounds. I wouldn't consider that fragile, but yeah, this is me. That's my take on it. It's not happening. Anyone who's hoping for an upset out there, Alabama's going to win by 20 points at least.
All right, sir. I appreciate it. We've got a pick of Alabama by at least 20 points, and I'm thinking that the Vegas line is going to come out in the, I don't know, 11 to 14 range, something like that, I would think. It'll be pretty substantial.
Something like that.
Okay.
More reasonable than me.
All right, good stuff. I appreciate the call, Reasonable Gump. I look forward to these Saturday night wrap-ups because I think the calls are even better when everybody's a little bit either dragging or hyped up about the results on Saturday. So thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
All right. You too, man. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, I missed 3 calls while Reasonable Gump was on. So if anybody else wants to call, we are looking at 2:22 a.m. Eastern time. And I'm going to stay up for quite a long time, but somebody's calling. All right. And we will be on live at 11 a.m. Eastern time on ST1 Sports. So catch us there. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's DeAndre. How you doing?
DeAndre, what's going on? I appreciate your comment in the chat room that I caught a couple minutes ago about the show tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, because I feel like Fox, like I hear Fox say Clemson's overrated, and I hear ESPN always hyping up the same teams. And I think you're more not as biased as they are. You know,
I try not to be.
Yeah, we know they're competing against each other, and they talk junk about each other, and everybody has their little dollars. What happened with the Ohio State game?
Oh my goodness!
I didn't see the game. I honestly didn't see the game.
Well,
I saw the score. I listened to it on radio.
Okay, so to compare it to the Clemson NC State game, which of course you saw, I'm guessing.
Right.
Okay, you saw the Clemson game. So the difference in the two games was not. I had the Clemson North Carolina State game on, and of course Clemson from the very first series took control of that game. They marched up and down the field on offense. They shut them down basically 3 and out. They made all the big plays. They just manhandled NC State. So the scores turned out pretty similar, 41-14 versus 49-20, but this wasn't a butt kicking from the first snap. This was a very competitive game for a half, and then we got into the third quarter, and Purdue started to pull away, and it got about halfway, a few series into the third quarter, and Purdue started making some big plays, and to their credit, they outplayed Ohio State. They kicked their rear ends, but it took a longer time, would be the only distinction I would make. Ohio State threw 2 big touchdown passes that got them back into the game. One was at 35-20, and one was, I forget what the score was. It must have been a score before that at like 28-13. And then you kind of felt, or at least I did, that maybe it would be a game that the Ohio State defense would show up and put down a stop, and because they got the passing game going. But the defense was awful. I thought the defense played a decent half and a few minutes of the third quarter, and then the back half of the third quarter and the fourth quarter, the defense was atrocious, and they just got annihilated. Just run out of the building.
I thought Clemson had a good first half, but that third quarter, I don't know, they just shut it down and didn't try to score that much. I know everybody said, well, they scored 41 points, but I don't. I didn't see them throw the ball that much anymore, like the deep passes and stuff like that. But Trevor Lawrence looked good. While I listened to your show, I was at work, my other job, and I heard some people, the LSU fans, say, well, Clemson, I guess, can't beat LSU or something. No, I totally disagree with that. Because we don't I think you heard me say it all summer long. Miami's overrated. Auburn, they've been struggling. I mean, who has LSU really beat? And I don't think LSU could beat Clemson on a neutral field. And I think Alabama's the best team in the country. I don't think that LSU Alabama game is going to be close. I mean, I just don't see where they're going to get enough offense to beat Alabama. You can slow them down because LSU got a good defense, but I don't think they can score like 25, 30 points on Alabama.
LSU also lost one of its best defensive players to targeting, so he's going to miss the first half. Devin White, their best linebacker.
Right. Well, I mean, like I said, that's going to hurt, but, I mean, he doesn't play offense, and I just don't see where the offense is going to come from. I know everybody said, well, look at what they did to Georgia. But I think Georgia turned the ball over a few times in that game, too. And we all knew Georgia was kind of suspect because I don't think Farm is as good as people think he is as dynamic. He was better than – he didn't turn the ball over. That's why Kirby Smart put him in front of Easton that transferred over to Washington. But I don't think he had the arm talent that Justin Fields or Emmons has. So I don't really think they played a great offense yet. And Florida is very limited in their passing game. So I think people give Clemson a hard time because they play in the ACC, and the ACC is kind of down this year. But outside of Alabama twice, Georgia once, and under Dabo, how many SEC teams have beat Clemson? I mean, I don't get that. Every time we step on the field with a SEC team, unless it's Bama, and we usually beat them. So I don't see why everybody keeps hyping up like Clemson can't play with these SEC teams. And Alabama only blew out Clemson 1 year, and that was 24-6 last year.
Sure.
And everybody knew Kelly Bryant couldn't throw the ball down the field. And the year that Alabama did beat Clemson, people forget Mike Williams didn't play that game. Deion Kane didn't play that game. Shaq Lawson was hurt, and Alexander, who was the best corner on that team, he only played in the first half, and he left, and that's when DJ Howard finally went off, and there was a lot of special teams scoring that team by Alabama too. So people keep saying that Clemson can't play with the SEC, but we've seen in the past that's not necessarily true. Some people say, well, some of that were bowl games or early season. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter when the games are played. Yeah, they play games. They put the uniform on. They count the score. So what's coming to mind, of course, we've got the 3 Alabama games and the championship games in the playoff that we all know about. We've got the 2 Auburn games that were Deshaun Watson's last year and then, of course, last season. So Clemson was a big favorite in the game at Auburn, and it turned out to be a close game where the Auburn defense played really well, but Clemson won by a touchdown, right? And then you won at home last year. I believe the score was 14-6 when you had the 11 sacks on Jarrett Stidham and really just completely shut down the Auburn offense. And both of those Auburn teams turned out to be top 15 teams in the country. They were both good teams. And, of course, the team last year went on and won the SEC Western Division and went to the championship game. What really got Dabo rolling, of course, as you well know, was that 13 Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl game against LSU, which was a great game. That turned on the Taj Boyd like 4th and 16 throw late in the game. And you guys drove it down the field and won like 25-24. Great game against LSU. Really good LSU team that finished in the top 10 or 12 in the country. Of course, you got the Texas A&M game this year, and we'll see how good Texas A&M is. But right now, they look like they're a pretty good football team that should finish something in the 9-3 range, something like that. Pretty good top 20 type team. And those are the games that come to mind between Clemson. Well, of course, the big run of South Carolina game. So you know that you've crushed South Carolina now for, what, 3 to 4 straight years. But before that, South Carolina did win those, 5 straight before that.
And that was some of the South Carolina best teams. I mean,
oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Sure. Oh, Chaz Sutton and yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Those teams.
It's not a knock on LSU. I don't think LSU is a bad team, but I don't get when people, just because they won a few games and they beat Georgia at home, I don't get why people say, hey, oh, yeah, they're back and stuff like that. That hurts my nerves. Let's see how the season plays out and see where you're at. I mean, look at Boston College. We all thought Boston College would beat Purdue, and I think Purdue was 0-3 at the time. Then Boston College loses. And then Boston College beats the Ohio State team, who everybody thought was good. I mean, everybody thought that the quarterback there's now is better than Barrett. So, we don't know how these teams are going to end up. We don't know what's going to go for week to week. Clemson struggled with Syracuse, but like I pointed out to you a couple of weeks ago, Clemson turned over the ball like twice around the goal line in the red zone area. So, I mean, for Syracuse to have a short field. So we don't know how these teams are going to show up. I didn't think Clemson was going to beat NC State like they did today. And I wish NC State would have had a chance to play West Virginia to see how good they really were. But Clemson had 2 weeks off to prepare for State. State had 2 weeks off for Clemson. And State was supposed to have one of the best receiver corps in the country. So we don't know how good State really was because we didn't see them play against West Virginia. And how good is West Virginia? I mean, we really don't know. I mean, let's see how the season plays out before we start saying this team could be that team and they ain't even played on the football field.
Yeah.
I mean, Duke destroyed Northwestern and Michigan struggled with them.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I watched Michigan State play. I mean, I don't know how, we all thought they were going to have a pretty good year, but they can't move the ball against anybody. Man, we just all need to take a chill pill and see how the season's going to go out because I think Clemson's going to have a really hard time with Florida State and Boston College.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Florida State, people keep on sleeping on Florida State because they're having a bad year. I mean, I know they're 4-3, but it's still Florida State. They got 4 and 5 stars all over the field. Just like Texas A&M did. They're going to be down to Texas A&M. It's going to be Lawrence's first game on the road as a starter in a big environment like that. Everybody needs to take a chill pill because we don't know how it's going to turn out. And Frank Shaw is still a pretty good quarterback. I mean, last year before he got hurt, they were number 2. Before they got destroyed by Alabama. Who says if he didn't get hurt, they would have had a great year last year? I mean, Cameron, what's his name? Cameron Akers. He's a great running back. I mean, he was the #1 running back in the country when he came out.
Yep.
So I mean, offensive line wise, they suck, but they still got Burns and I think his name is they got a decent Christmas. They're pretty good. I mean, secondary wise, I think Florida has been as good as they were, but we all need to take a chill pill and look. And AJ Dillon might be back at time for Clemson to play him. So we're gonna see a different type of Boston College team. So I'm not gonna say Clemson's gonna go undefeated, but it's gonna be hard games. Yeah, South Carolina and Duke at the end of the year. I mean, who knows what type of Duke team we're gonna see? I mean, I know they lost to Virginia, but I mean, who says that Duke ain't gonna be good? I mean, because Duke has beaten teams when you don't expect it. So everybody needs to look at some of these before they start saying the schedule's weak. Look at some of these teams for what they do when they do it.
We also have to keep in mind, DeAndre, that So this college football playoff started in 2014. So there's been 4 years of that. And we have never had a team win all of its games. So every team that's won a national championship has lost a game.
Right. Well,
So,
Mark, I want to tell you have a good night, man. Let you get some more of them callers. I love the show, man. You do a better job than ESPN. And I think his name Joe Clatt. I guess he played at Colorado. I mean, he played at Colorado when probably Colorado sucked. So I don't think his word is too much for me. But I enjoyed the show and all the people that call in. I
appreciate it, DeAndre.
You have a great night, sir. I'll be listening.
You as well, sir. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay.
Our guy DeAndre, he loves the Clemson Tigers. He follows the ACC extremely closely, and college football in general. All right, folks, it's been a great wrap-up of Ohio State, Purdue, also the other big games across the country, Michigan State, North Carolina State, Clemson, LSU, Mississippi State, and so forth. Of course, a big game in the Pac-12 North with Washington State jumping out to a big lead and holding on against Oregon. So it now is Washington State's lead in the Pac-12 North Division with just the one loss against USC, and they've got the first big win under their belt against the better teams in the Pac-12 North for those people that are up a little bit earlier and not having to stay up so late that are on the West Coast that tune into Mark Rogers TV. All right, we appreciate it. It was mentioned a number of times in the chat to please like the videos. That helps us out tremendously. I don't know exactly how the YouTube analytics work and the logarithms, but we do know the algorithms, I should say, the algorithms to get my math terms correct at 2:30 in the morning. But we do know that the likes, the comments help, and I'm going to attempt to respond with videos on the viewer comments and not just jump in there from time to time, and do my best to get back to as many people as possible. And again, I think you understand that I've got too many comments to get back to. So what I try to do is if I see you've made 5 comments, I try to look and see which one was a little bit more opinionated or spoke to something, and I get right back to you on one of the 5 and try to get to everyone and not leave any particular people out. So that's what I try to do. What I've been urged to do, and it would be a whole lot of fun, is take the comments maybe every week, look through the comments, select the best 3 or 4 or 5 comments, and maybe some of those ones that are a little bit more fun because they really attack me, because those are amusing, and then address the comments with a comments video. So again, I'm going to be up bright and early at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Hopefully, I should probably set the alarm for a few minutes before that. So it's 11 a.m. Eastern time over on SG1 Sports. We're doing a live stream on a big wrap-up of the college football weekend, and it should be quite the shakeup. And as you guys know, we will be releasing our top 25 that actually makes sense, and it's going to be shooken up quite a bit with the results on Saturday. So Ohio State, they'll plummet. Michigan State pretty much out. Trying to think, Washington State will take a nice little hike up, of course, with their boost from the Oregon State win. LSU looking dominant on defense against Mississippi State, and we'll take it all into account. Of course, North Carolina State, even with one loss, might be out because they have yet to play anyone. All right, everyone, we appreciate it. Please support the channel by using the links in the description sections of any of the videos to enter Amazon. You don't have to buy the products. Just enter Amazon and do your regular shopping. That helps support the channel right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and the newsletter. Get your newsletter by sending your email address to markrogerstv@gmail.com. I'll get you on the newsletter, the voice of college football, that's released each and every Monday with the channel update, with my take on the weekend, and the stats, trends, and facts on college football. We'll see you guys soon. I know that I miss a ton of comments that I would like to see. So if anybody had any other questions or comments, certainly comment to the videos and I will pick those up. Or for many of you who had some nice compliments to make, and I'm sure I miss a ton of those, Thank you so much for your support. We will see you with the top 25 that makes sense right here at Mark Rogers TV. And of course, the live stream that we will strike up at 11 a.m. Eastern time over on SG1 Sports Sunday morning. We'll see you soon.